So we have started building our freestyle UI5 application. So in this application, we have seen the list report template. We tried to replicate that using our freestyle UI5 application building, and we have seen some of the events and things like that. Smart control, smart filter bar, smart table properties, and etc. from demo kit, UI5 demo kit. But before that, what I would like is, let me, yeah, and we have tried using our local annotations as well. So to configure the columns of our smart table and also the selection fields for our smart filter bar using local annotations, where the standard OData service doesn't have any of these metadata extensions. Locally, we have configured all those things. That's fine. And also we have seen the output, how it is going to be. It's the same like our list report. List report template, but using our custom configurations. So that's okay. And also we have seen how we configure the value helps for the selection fields as well. And these are all keeping that we will be working on the smart controls. So only smart controls will be acting or responding to these annotations, whatever we work on. That's fine. So now, again, we are trying to understand how the template based applications working and the freestyle smart controls working based on the annotations. But what we need to know is, if a plain page, if we want to create a control on our page, on our own page, for example, input field or a drop down, how we are going to deal with that? What all things we need to know? So that is what the main thing. Whenever we come to a freestyle UI5 application, we would need to know the connectivity that we discussed yesterday, that a model, what kind of model it is required, and how we deal with the model, and how we make the calls if at all we want to update something in the backend, and etc. So to start with that, I think we may take another project, or we can proceed creating our controls, introducing a new button here, going to the next page. And in the next page, anyway, we will be needing to create a plain trip here. So whereas we will be calling the OData service to push this data into the backend. So let me try to create a button here where it will be navigating to the next page. On the next page, we will introduce all the input fields, drop downs for country, and some other controls we use there. So let me go back here, and in this one, whatever the navigation is needed, we call it as a routing here. So the routing where all it's going to take place means all the configurations are going to take place in the manifest file. So if we look at a glance, if we take a glance at this manifest file, so here we will be having some of the configurations, and if you see here the ID, so this is the ID or component ID which we will be using to configure our UI5 application as a tile target configuration in the Launchpad designer. Okay, so and also this ID is referring to the component that we create as a BSP application. The BSP application name is going to be the UI5 application name. Both are different. UI5 application name is different and the component name is different. So in this case, if we deploy this one back onto on-premise system, then the component ID is going to be this one, but the BSP name is different. I think we have deployed this application back to on-premise trip list. And if you see in this manifest file of this ZTH trip list, this is the component ID, and at the bottom of this, it's going to store the UI5 application name as well. As we have already deployed this one, ZTH UI5 trip plan is the UI5 application name. So there it is different. That's just need to note down there. And also we have the next properties that we have the title of this application and etc. Whatever this two curly braces we see here, that means these are the descriptions. They are coming from I18N file. So if you go into the I18N file, you will see app title, app description, and etc. here. So that is what this meaning. So if you say come across any of this one, so you will need to think that okay, so they are the descriptions coming from the I18N file. And data source. So this is the data source that we have added graphically using our data source pane here, data source tab. So if you look at our project that we have created for freestyle, and this is the data source that we have created yesterday. So this data source is the OData service name, which is straight away bringing the metadata from backend system. And in this one, if you see, yes, this is the data source name. We can change this data source name, but this URI must have the OData service name, on which service this is going and bringing the data. And after and here we see the OData service version, it is mentioned. And after adding the metadata, we have created annotation file, which is to serve our purpose of experiencing the local annotations, where we configured the columns for the smart table. Okay. So here SAP UI5, it just about the UI5 configurations, and these are the parameters for icons. So how it needs to be displayed in terms of UI5 deployment. The icons, what we have seen in the icon explorer, we can use all those icons in that places. So device types. So what are all the devices our application would support? So desktop, tablet, phone, all of them are supported. And here supported themes. What are the themes? It supports if we have any our custom themes, we can specify our themes here. And coming to the SAP.UI5, and this is where we will be configuring our routing, but root view is a must. Whenever we create a freestyle application, there will be a root view, which view should be displayed first initially, and from there onwards it will continue based on our routing. As of now, we don't have any routing, but we will be configuring our routing in the manifest.json file. So we will be making some changes around this one. And the dependencies. So these are the dependencies of our application. If you see minimum UI5 version, we are expecting 1.30. This is the minimum version, but this is not going to be our app version. So this is the minimum version that we expect our app to run. And libraries, these are the default libraries has been added onto this one, and we have referenced them as a namespaces whenever we run or implement or develop our views, XML views. That point we have described them. They are required. They are required to use any of the controls inside these namespaces. And the content density, and this content density is relevant for the mobile devices and desktop devices, the big and small screens basically. So earlier, before in the UI5 itself, the SAP recommendation was to use specific namespaces for mobile application developments and different namespace for desktop applications. So such as SAP.em namespace for mobile development and SAP.commons for desktop application development. So whenever we use the commons, they include all the desktop relevant controls. Whenever we use SAP.em, they contain all the mobile device relevant controls. But that segregation is no more on UI5. So whenever we use this compact and cozy, these two properties, they will take care by identifying which device the user is running. Based on that, the display of the controls and arrangement of the controls using the HTML5 capabilities, they are automatically adjusted. We don't really need to worry about it. So they are standard generated. And the models, coming to the models, and this is the major role plays where it takes care of the data transformation between view and the controller. So we will be looking at these models. Right now, we are going to create JSON models and we are already using V2 OData model. If you see here, this is the default model that we created based on the data source. So this is the data source. To create a model, we need the data source, and this data source will refer whatever what kind of model it is, and etc. If you see here, the type is OData model. Okay, and now using the data source, a default model has been created. And in this case, this is the resource model, we call it as. The resource model is nothing but it's a I18N internationalization model. If at all we want to maintain translatable texts, then we will be maintaining in this I18N dot properties. But in general, this is going to be the default file. How we are going to maintain the multiple languages? It is going to be right now. This is the default file we are going to use. But if we want to maintain any different language descriptions, and this file will be repeated having underscore then language key I18n underscore en, for example, en dot properties, I18n underscore es for Spanish, es dot properties, like that. The framework is capable to pick up the respective file, translatable file, whenever the app has been opened in any specific language. Okay, and finally we have the resources. In this resources, right now we have only CSS files. So if you have any custom CSS, if you are familiar implementing the custom CSS files, like a background color or font color or font size or table size or screen width, the background width, and etc., height and etc., we have a freedom to implement our custom style sheets as well. So this is the path here. If you come to the left, let me minimize that one. And if you see here in the CSS, we have style.css file available here. So you can specify your classes here, and the same classes can be referenced in the UI design, UI elements place. Okay, so and also this is not only limited for CSS, but we can also reference any third-party JavaScripts as well, but they have to comply with the organization policies. So if the organization is having any JavaScript files outside or non-SAP relevant, or they have any global JavaScript files, they can go ahead and include those resource files, and they can reference from these JavaScript files. So usually, if someone knows the HTML way of including the JavaScripts, if you see here, this is the HTML5 file, whereas this will be called as a starting page, and here this is the one which will be attaching all our content onto the page. Okay, so here if you see the component container, the ID whatever we have discussed in our manifest.json file, the same ID is being used on this here. So basically the script files, script tag, HTML tag includes the JavaScript files here. So if you see all these JavaScript files and libraries, everything are being added onto this here. So this will be accessed only in case of web application. But if we deploy it onto on-premise system, and it will start from the component, it won't trigger the index.html file. But if you deploy this application onto your business technology platform, then it is considered as a web application, and index.html file will be your starting point for this one. So and this is a freestyle manifest.json file. And if you look at the list report template based or Fiori elements based manifest.json file, so many things are common, but there will be few additional things. And we know this main service, which is a data source coming from backend, and there is another one which is loading the annotations to fetch the metadata extensions for us. So if you see here, there is a specific OData service which will be pulling out the metadata extensions that we have built on our CDS view. So if you see, this is VAN is the extension file where we say vocabulary annotations. Okay, VAN file. These vocabulary annotations will be pulled runtime when we execute the UI5 application. And this vocabulary annotation file will give all the list of UI annotations, consumption annotations, whatever the annotations we specify on our backend system. And this one we can straight away go ahead and if you like to pull this information, you can straight away go ahead and run this query on your gateway client as well. It will give you the result. And this is where the local annotations. So, okay, that's fine. So if you have your own annotations, then the external annotations, bring them. On top of that, there will be a local reference to the local annotations as well. So, okay, that's fine. You have your dedicated annotations. If you want to overwrite any of those annotations, this is what the local annotation file, you can go ahead and make your changes. That's what it says. Okay. And there are few things offline or source template. It's going to be the smart template, as I mentioned. So they are going to be dealing with the smart controls. So, and this section is common and there is no change on this one. And also resources, JavaScript and CSS, they both blank. If you see, if you want to have any additional JavaScript or CSS resources, we can add them here. In the dependencies, if you see the minimum version, this has 1.32, whereas in freestyle it's 1.30. That's fine, we don't need to worry. But as part of the libraries, if you see the UI.generic.template has been added as a minimum dependency. And if you come down to the models, there are more resource models have been created, whereas they are referring to the same I18N, but with different sections. So if you look here in the I18N, not this one, it's this one. In the list, I18N, in the list report, we have, this is the common file that we have, but in the list report itself, we have page header and etc. We can implement all these files, whatever we see here. Okay, the object page URI is going to be I18N properties. So if we want to add any of the translatable text related to the object page, then this is how we should implement I18N. Then right now we have list report, we have to create object page and then the entity set name, then again I18N dot properties file. And okay, that's fine. This data source main service default binding is two-way. This is all fine. We will see what is that default model. And extensions, we don't have any extensions at the moment. And this is where our template comes into picture. Even in your future developments, you might be requiring to amend these sections according to your navigation configurations. So in this case, we have the columns, that flexible column layout, the configuration for us. And as a starting, we have the page. It will start with one page, which is a list report page in our case. And within the list report, it specifies what is the entity set and what is the component it is referring. And if you see, even list is specified as true here. And in this one, if you see, there is again, after list page, there is again a detailed page, that means object page. So from the object page, again, it's going to two items of this particular one. Okay, so this is to represent the header information, and this is to represent the items navigation information here. So navigation property, and this is the entity set, and what kind of page it is. It is on object page. So once we run this application, we will be able to understand what section is relevant for what. So let me click on this one. Not sure if it is perfectly working. Okay, yes, it is working. So this is what about the first page configuration here. In this, this is what is, if we remove something, if we change something, it's not going to work. And if we select on this one, and this is what the second one, what is that? So this section is for object page of this one. And if you see the two items, and this is what is referring to the two items navigation property. Okay, and from this one, how we define is going to be defined in the items. That means the item CDSU metadata extensions. If we define there, and it's automatically displayed here. But if that's not happening, then we might be ending up creating another pages here. And again, we will be using the object page template, and with this entity set, and the selected item information will be displayed on the next page. Okay, so in current way of freestyle application development, what are all the changes, or what are all the things we will be configuring or working on our manifest.json file? We will go ahead and see the routing, how we achieve this routing. So basically, how the routing works is, there will be a plain page that will stay as a root view for always, and there will be multiple views created. Whenever navigation is happening, the main page, whatever we are going to create, that will stay as a container. And within the container, we will be having different views whenever we call particular target, and that view will be displayed, and rest of them will be hidden. That's how the routing works. Let me go ahead and create, rather explaining that. And if you want to reference or look at the UI5 demo kit here, UI5 demo kit, and you look for the concept of routing, and you can even go into the documentation, or you can go into the samples. So if you type routing, if you see here router, you can see here tutorials, routing, navigation and routing. We have tutorials here. So setting up the initial app, enable routing. Okay, so we can pick any of them. I want to navigate. Is the setting up? That's fine. Enable routing. And in the enable routing, come on, it's not going anywhere. Hard coded pattern. Yep. So it's going somewhere. That's fine. So now it is happening. So if you go ahead and look at look at the code of this one. Come on. Okay, that's fine. So let me go ahead and create a new view for us that will stay as our container. Let me right click on web app, new HTML SAP UI5 view, and I'll say this one as my what to say, app or container. App, let's say app. I'm going to create this as with name app. So now we have app created here, and in the controllers also we have app controller created. So in this place we see the title have been added, and we can change that, because we are going to make this app view as a root. I mean the container. From this container we will be implementing our routing concept. So let me go ahead and check the manifest.json file, and in this one right now we have the root view. Where is that root view? Yeah, root view right now it is home, but I am going to change my app view as my root. So let me execute this one and see. So if you see, we are not seeing our smart controls anymore, because this became our root view. App became our root view. So let me change the title of this one. And this title, I think we have something in our I18N properties. Yes, this is the title. Let me copy from there and go here, and let me write I18N, and then this is the name. Okay, so now we have title on our root view. basically. Give me a moment. So here, one more thing that we need to have is on the app, we will be giving an ID here. ID equals to, because we will be using this in routing configurations. Let me tell you why it is required. ID root control, for example, ID root control. Okay, fine. So now we have changed the root view. Now we have the root view, and we have another view. This view has to be our default view. Whenever user executes it, now we need to bring home view by default onto app view. That is what our target going right now. So let me go into my manifest.json file again, and now this time I'm going to descriptor editor, because this will make easy building the routing. And if you go into the routing here, and we have navigation as well, but don't go into the navigation, it's only routing. So let me add a route here. I'm going to create a route. Come on, is it not adding? That's fine. So let me create a target first, then target is going to be home, and my home is going to be my home view. Okay, so let me save this one. I've created one target. Let me try. Yes. So now I have my routing. So routing route name is going to be home. Pattern is going to be blank. Pattern, I'll tell you what is the pattern. And now for this, target is going to be my home. So let me save this one. And now let's go ahead and refresh our application. So still we are not able to see our home page. Now what we need to do here is, okay, that's fine. So we have configured our target. We have created a container view. Now we have made our routing basic principles, but now routing is not instantiated yet. So in this case, again, we will be going to the component.js file, and in the component.js file, we need to instantiate the router. So instantiating the router here, we can refer to the demo kit, how we can instantiate, because we need to work on a way that we shouldn't remember things, but we should be able to reference few things from the guide, whatever we have. So here we just there will be a method get router dot initialize is the method. So we have initialized the router. Now router will take place, but still we have some mistake, but we will see. So these are all the things we will be doing step by step. Now, and also we might be missing those minor steps, whereas we will be ending up not seeing our routing happening in proper way. So now still we are not able to see our routing here. The reason we have a ID created for our container, and this ID needs to be specified in the routing configurations. Where is that routing configuration? In the manifest file, you see here there is a control ID input field specified here, and let's put this ID root control. Then let's save it. And if you want to see all the properties, how they are being populated in the code-based editor of manifest.json file. Okay, so this is how it is going to be configured in the routings. Okay, and also here maybe it is because the web IDE personal edition, it is not picking up some another parameter which is required for routing, which is a router class. Router class is the main important thing here. For some reason, I think it is not picking up that, but let's see if our page loads without that routing class. So the page is not loading yet. So let me add this config in the config router class, and this one is going to be sap.m.routing.router, I think here. So let me put this, and also there are a few things, and the view path here. What is the view path? It's going to be, if you can pick this up from the view name here, the root view name. This is going to be the view path, and the view type is going to be XML. Yes, that's true. Show more properties. Control aggregation, that's fine. We can give as like a pages. Why this pages means, in the view we have the pages and the content place, and we are using this ID as a control ID. So within this one, in which place the content has to be displayed, this is our place, pages. That is what we are mentioning here. So our control aggregation is going to be pages, and transition, whenever you navigate, how the style has to be, whether it is a slide or flip or fade. These are the different types. Whenever your U is presented, it will be represented in that particular way. So let me say it as a flip. Let me save this one, and yeah, that's okay. If you go into the code editor, now you see transition, control aggregation, view path, everything has been populated. This one we added. Control ID is this one. So name, pattern, blank, that's okay, fine. So let me go here and refresh the page. Perfect. So if you see our page, whatever we are intending to see as our home page, now the home page has been loaded for us. Okay, so by looking at itself, it doesn't feel like we are on two pages, but two views technically. But if you go into technical aspects of it, we are displaying the home view on app view. That is what is happening here. So always our app view is going to stay as it is. And on the app view, we will be navigating back and forth using our navigation concepts. Okay, so right now we have added only one view. So now let me create another view. Create SAPUI5 view, and okay, so view name is going to be create trip. So next, okay, that's fine. So now we have created another view called create trip. And in this create trip, again, we are going to use the manifest.json file. Let us go here. Let us create a target. And in the target, I'm going to give create, okay, or new trip. Anything, target is our wish. So basically we proceed with the T means for target, R means for route. So we have created new target, and I'm going to create new route here, and my route name is going to be new trip. And pattern, this time I'm going to give a pattern for this one, create trip, and target is going to be my new trip. So that's it. Save this one. Now it is perfect. So now whatever, sorry, in the new trip, I haven't chosen my view here. Let me choose my view for this target. This is my view. Okay, so that's it. Done. My routing has been configured. Now, how I navigate from my page? From this one, what is the action point, or how I want to navigate from this page to another page? To do that, we definitely need a event. So the event will drive us writing some JavaScript code to specify the route or navigation logic. So whatever the kind of event it can be. So in our case, we are going to create a button here. So using that button, we are going to navigate to the next page, create trip. But in your case, it can be anything that it can be a link available on any of your table field, or it can be any button, or it can be any drop down, anything. The triggering point, it can be anything. So in our case, we want to have a button on this place. Let us go and create the button on our smart table. So what is the view? It's going to be our home view, and here we don't know where to create a button, right? So let us go ahead and take the reference, demo kit reference. Okay, so this one has opened right now, I think. Okay, that's fine. So we are already going through this one. But for your information, I'll tell you. So if you see here, there is an ID mentioned in app view, and where is that? In the component.js router.initialize method has been specified. So if you follow this one, and manifest.json file, And in the manifest.json file, if you see here, routing configuration, the routing class has been specified. Yeah, the view type XML, and the view path is this one. Control ID has been mentioned. Control aggregation has been mentioned as pages. Transition slide. Okay, so bypassed, so we don't need to worry about this at the moment. Asynchronous, if we want to specify, you can specify asynchronous, that not needed. So they are to consider some of the performance things. But apart from that, here if you see the routes, so there is only one route, app home, and there are two targets. So not found is one of the target, and home is the another target. In our example as well, if you go into the manifest.json file, all this has been converted into code. So now you see more lines has been inserted into our code here. We have two targets. One is home and another one is new trip. In the routes, if you see, we have two routes. One is home and another one is new trip. Okay, and each route has its target. If you see, so target has been assigned. Okay, if you go in this route, where you will be going, to new trip. So to let me differentiate some names, because both are same, you may get confused. Routes, I'll specify nav home, and here also I'll say navigate to new trip. Navigation to new trip, navigation to home. So in this case, you will see this route name is navigation home, and this is navigation to new trip, and the target is new trip, and here target is home. And the configuration, it is fine for us. That's okay. So now we are going to find out some options for smart table, how we create a button. And in the smart table, where we can go is the better way. Full screen button, not that one. Okay, so let's go into the API reference. Smart table. In the smart table, we have seen the properties, how we should look at in terms of the properties, but we are not into the properties right now. We are not talking about properties, but instead we are going to use the aggregations. So this is the aggregation we will be using, custom toolbar. So aggregation means, let me go here. If I write, then you may get some idea. And if you see here, smart table layout data, and that layout data is one of the aggregation. Okay, that is coming from another table. That's fine. We don't have it here. So the aggregation will be same like this. Smart table custom toolbar. This is what aggregation is going to be. And within the aggregation, what is it having? It is the type is sap.m.toolbar. It is referring to another control where you can even it has mentioned the cardinality as well. You cannot have custom toolbar two times or more than one time. If you try building or writing smart table custom toolbar, there will be a runtime error reported, the cardinality or something. Okay, it's not displaying us. Let me go ahead and implement this one first. So sap.m.toolbar, if you click on that one, it will take you to the sap.m.toolbar. In the toolbar, the properties you can see the design and etc. So let me utilize this toolbar here, sap.m.toolbar. We already have the namespace sap.m, I guess. Yeah, this is our default namespace. That's fine. So let me go ahead and insert the toolbar here. Okay, and within the toolbar, if you look at this aggregations, we can have the content. So content, it can be any of the control here. So this means it can be any control. So let me implement the content. So toolbar, content, and now I'm going to add a button here. Button. So again, this button, we can look for the button samples. If you go to the samples, in the samples, you can type the button here. So button, you have many types of buttons available here. So whatever the button you want, you can pick up those buttons. But in my case, I'm going to pick up the button. So if you see default button, accept, reject, whatever here, so you can straight away get into the code and you can look for a button, how it is being implemented. You can just copy one of the button from here, or if you look at this, there is even a toolbar is available here, and there is a button available on the toolbar itself. So if you see, this is what the toolbar here. Okay, and if you, as our requirement is to pick up the button on the toolbar, that's fine. So let me pick up this one, and here we want this toolbar spacer as well, but I'll come to that later. So let me okay, type back button, or we can even have different types. Again, we will get this from our API reference. If you go into API reference, we will see all these m dot button, button, yeah, and button type is the class here. If you see, it will also display in the properties. If you go into the properties, we can get all the properties, whatever that we can use. Okay, so enabled, if you have something, some requirement to enable or disable dynamically, then you can bind this property. That's fine, we will come to that later. And now we are going to use this icon property for this button, and as we have given type, it's automatically going to take something, but I want to use an icon. And again, for this icon, I'll be going to the icon explorer on the demo kit. So if you go here, tools, and icon explorer, where is this icon explorer? UI5 tooling. Yeah, icon explorer here. So let me go into the icon explorer and pick me some new icon here. Create. Taking some time. Yeah. So if you see here, add. So this is, I'm just wanting to use this icon. I'm just copying it. And if you see here, whatever the type, how, if we want to bring into the kind of style or something, we can also make use of the types available there. So let me copy this icon here. I copy it, and I'll just paste my icon URL here. That's it. And again, I'm going to my this one here. And if you have text also available on this one, if you want your icon to be first, and always this is true. But if you want your icon to be back, let me put the text here. Create new trip, for example, and I'm going to pick this property icon first. I'll make it as false. Icon first equal to false. Okay, and this type, again, if you see here, type of the button, so it is default, but if you click on this one, it will show you how many types of buttons available here. So back, accept, attention, critical, and if you see, there are more buttons, but few types have been added later stage, but we don't want to use those buttons which are more than our on-premise version. Let me find something, type reject, and success, not this one. Transparent, unstyled, no styling, up, button type up. Okay, back, accept. Let me use the emphasized one. Okay, button type, I use emphasized. So, and the events point of view, press is the event. If you go into your button again, in the events, press is the event. Earlier tap was also event when initial stages, but that has been deprecated, and press is the event right now for this particular button. So press is the event, and we assign a JavaScript function here on create new trip. And I'm copying this function, and also I'm going to my home controller, as I am working on the home view. I'll just go to the home controller, and here that is for the search, smart filter bar search, but I want to use for so this is the place where I'm going to write some logic to navigate from home page to the create trip view. Okay, so now we have added the button, and let's go and see whether we will be able to see the button here or not. Create new trip. See, so we can see the create new trip button here, but I want to see this create new trip button at the end of this particular one. So that is where we have a toolbar spacer available on our toolbar, especially if you look at this. Where is that one? Yeah, button. Let me go here, and again we can look for the API reference. So toolbar spacer. So we have toolbar spacer available, and we can go ahead and pick this toolbar spacer. So even the same thing can be found in the API reference, m.toolbar. Okay, and if you go into the toolbar, this is the class, and in the not aggregations, maybe not here as well, not in the properties as well. So toolbar spacer is a separate class. Oh yeah, so it's a separate class, toolbar spacer. And if you see, the toolbar spacer can be used, and even it has the CSS properties and etc. And even it has the tooltip if you want to specify some text on that one. You can specify the text, and in the toolbar content we can place this toolbar spacer, so that it will separate the content. It will provide the space before the button until it goes to the, and usually it pushes the button to the end of that one. So let me refresh, and if you see, now we have the button at the end of this table. I mean, okay. So now let me change some of its properties. Entity set, persistence key expanded. Let me say true, and live mode, I would say false, so that we can have option to run it and see it. Okay, so here there is nothing happening once we click on this particular button here. So, and also if you see, the icon that we have added has been pushed to the end. That is because we have used one of the property, that icon first, we made it as false. If we leave this one or remove this one, it's by default the icon is going to first. Okay, that's fine. So now let's go ahead and implement the logic to navigate from here. So how we navigate? Again, we can go ahead and take help from the API reference. So m.route, sorry. So routing.router, and this is the router we will be getting. But before that, let me go into the home controller. Here we will be learning the keywords this, and this keyword refers to the current controller object. So the current controller object, as we are in the home controller, it doesn't mean a JavaScript file. So it refers to JavaScript file or JavaScript object here. So in terms of how we should look at it is, when I say refer to the object, and this object, we know how the object will look like in terms of JSON. So an object will be included within the curly braces, and also it has the key and value pairs, right? So this also will be in the same manner whenever we use our instance, when we work on our ABAP programs like me in the classes, whenever we want to use the keywords like me, and this object is exactly same as me. So this is the self-reference created self instance of the self controller, I mean to say. So in ABAP also, me is the keyword where it refers to the self instance of that particular class, right? So here we will be using the this is going to be the self instance of any of the controller. So it's not only for this controller. You can take any of the controller that we create. This keyword will refer to their self instance of that particular controller. And from here we will have the another one, owner component. So this owner component always refers to the component.js. Okay, so who is the owner of this controller? These are all the local controllers, but component.js is the global controller where you can create any of the methods in this one, and you can utilize in your local controllers here. So whatever the controllers you create under the controller, they are considered as local controllers, but some cases, if you want to publish them as global controllers, then we can publish them as global controllers as well. Okay, but we will not be involving or creating anything in the controller. So we leave this controller as it is for views that have created. We don't want to disturb the MVC or the structure how the project has been created. If at all we want to create any additional JavaScript files, then we will be creating a new folder under this web app. So we go ahead and create kind of utility kind of folder, and sorry, is this file? I think I have chosen to create a file, but it's not going to be file, it's going to be the folder. Okay, utility. And if you create a folder, and within this folder we can go ahead and create a new common utility JS, utility.js, and you can have this utility.js, and you can implement all your global functionalities or common functionalities if you have anything. And this one can be referenced inside the local controllers. So whatever has been created for the views, so that can be reused in all the controllers. That's fine. So here the owner component, when we say owner component, it's going to be the component.js. It's going to refer to the component.js. And let me comment these two lines. And same thing, what I'm going to do here is I am going to call one of the method, this dot get owner component dot get router get router for this. No. Get router, that is enough. And for this one, okay. So here, and we will need to look at another thing here, how we define the variables. Variables declaration. So the variables declaration here, we can straight away write where, and if it is a single value, we start with single. If it is an object, then we start with O, and if it is a constant, and we start with C here. Okay, constant. And if it is a local one, then obviously we can start with underscore router, for example, I would say. And there are another two ways of declaring variables, let and const, but we'll discuss them later. So here what I'm doing, I'm just getting the router from the owner component. So because the router, whatever has been initialized, will not be available at each controller level. Obviously, we have to ask the component.js to give the router for this. And
where can we define global data master?
So global data, yeah, that's, we'll come to that. And for this router, okay, now we have got the router. And if you look at this m.routing.router, and whatever we see here, okay, so they all relevant for the router. And what is the method here? If you go into the methods, these are all the methods that we can use the runtime. But if we want to add a route dynamically, we can go ahead and add using these methods. But this, each and every method are serving their individual standalone purposes. But here, if you see here, nav2 is also one of the method available in the router. So in the nav2, if we pick up this nav2, it will ask for the name of the route that you need to navigate. Okay, so, and also additionally, it has the parameter sections. If you want to pass any of the parameters to the next view, then we will be using the parameters. But if we don't have any parameters, that's fine. How you need to understand this one here is, if you see this nav2 is specified here, how we need to call this particular method. And here there is a question mark available in each parameter after it. How we should be understanding this is, question mark means it's optional parameter. As there is no question mark on the S name, this is not an optional parameter. We have to pass the root name. So that makes sense. So because without root name, it doesn't know where to navigate it. So rest all the parameters are optional here. So let's go ahead and use this nav2 function, nav2 method, whatever we call it, function or method. So let me, now we have underscore router. So once we get this one, once we call this one, it returns the router for us. In the router dot, I will call this nav2. So here we can have, we can see what type it is. It's going to be a string type. So the root name is going to be the string type. So now it's a this is how we use the string literals parsing. So we use the double quotes to pass the strings between um, the JavaScripts. So let me go into the manifest and find out what is my root name. So now new trip is going to be my root name. Let me go into the controller. That's fine. And each and every line ends with a semicolon in JavaScript. Okay. So now our job is done. So the routing, we got the router and we are navigating to the next page on the on create new trip action. So it is saved, and now let me go here and refresh the page. So if I click on this one, perfect. So now I'm on my second page. The style, whatever we have defined on the root, it has been applied. It's a slide style. It is sliding now. So if you want to look at the object, how it is getting in the debugging, you just go ahead into the sources and expand your controller. So where is your action? It is in your home controller, and just put a breakpoint here, and now again click it. So here you will see all of them coming through here. So here the debugging shortcuts are available right here. So F10, where is that one? Yeah. So this is going to be F10 to execute a single step, and this one is going to be F11, skip into the next function. So it just skips to the next function, and this one is going to be F8. So if you want to continue or completely exit from the debugging or skip to next debugging point, you will be clicking on F8. And the other one is F8, sorry, F9. If you want to get inside to this function, so here this dot get route get owner component is having another function. It's another calling another function, right? So the two parentheses, whatever we see here, that is the method calling. That means it's a method. So if you want to get into that particular method, then you will be pressing F9 here. So let me click F10 here. So F10, we have got the router reference, and in the right side of this one, we call this as I mean the entire debugging is called as developer tools. If you click on F12, the same thing is going to happen. So right now we launched the inspector using the right click and then inspect. Same thing will be launched on clicking on pressing F12 key on your keyboard. So in the developer tools, we can see the breakpoints, where all the breakpoints have been inserted, and there is a watch as well. So if you want to watch something, you can create your watching variables here. So in here we have underscore router. So if you want to watch the router will be added onto your watch points. So you can have this watch point. So if you are looking some specific variable, then you can specify in your watch pointer place, and you will be continually keep watching on your variable here. So in this router, that's fine. And breakpoints, that's fine. And scope here we have global scope and local scope. The global scope, it is completely including the browser, your application component, everything will be included in your I mean the HTTP, all a lot of stuff. even that's extreme variables that we don't need or we don't know as well will be included into this global variables list. But we don't want to get into this global at the moment, but instead local scope. This is same as uh, we see in our debugging, ABAP debugging local scope. So whatever is inside this function, that means on create new trip, O event is the one, and within the O event, whatever we have, I mean, they all will be can they all can be seen here. And underscore router, yes, underscore router is also the local scope, and this will be always available on each and every scope, because this will be referring to what our local controller here. And within the controller, it even gives us the view instance. And within this view, if we want to get any of the control dynamically into our controller, this view will help us from this instance. So if you see here O event, and we will be using this O event, and this O event, what it will include is from where this event is coming from. So this O event is triggered based on a button here. So if you see here, whatever the button available or clicked on, that button information is coming from here. So this is the button ID. Unfortunately, we have not given any specific ID to this button. If we don't give ID to any of the control or HTML control we create on our XML views, the framework will automatically generate a unique ID for those controls. Okay, so there is another another importance of this ID. We will come to that later. So, and source, and this source also will give the instance of that particular button. So from this one, if it is having any bindings, and if you see here from that button, we can even get the icon, where to which icon it is referring to, and even we can get the text from the properties and what type it is. If we want to change this type once it is clicked, then we can implement those kinds of things here. But that's fine. So the local scope referring to this one. So O event and the router, underscore router, and things like that. So this O event, okay, why do I need to give this O event? That is another question. How do I know I need to give this O event or anything? So this is not a specific fixed value O event. You can specify anything there, but the framework will give you this information. But how do you know I need to give some value here, something here? That we will come to know from this demo kit that we have. Let me open the button on the press event. If you look at the structure of the parameters of this press event, if you look at this one, it's going to give you the control. Okay, so the parameters, it has control event, whenever it is, wherever it is clicked, the same same event is going to be returned as an instance. Okay, so this is what the parameter we have. There is only one parameter. You can, even if you don't want to use O event, you can copy this parameter from here, O control event, and you can go and use O control event as it is. Or if you want to use A or B or C, whatever, it's a custom, it's a developer friendly. But O event is as it is referring to object, and as it is an event, we refer it as a O event. Or if you want to use the O control event, that's fine. And these are the methods that it has: get source and get parameters. So if you look at this one, m parameters. So if you use that methods, if you want to get this ID of that one, you will be using get parameter method, and you will be giving this ID. Then it will give you the button 0 back. We will see that one. That's fine. You don't need to make yourself complex. Right now, it says routing is a simple topic, but we are discussing all the things around it. Okay, we are not straight away going to the routing, and this is how the routing happens and things like that. We are not doing that. So we are going the things around it. So okay, so now we have made our navigation. That's fine. So now let me go into the create trip view, and let me rename this one, create new trip. The title, page title, I have changed, and in this one, so we are going to write some or implement some controls. So in this place, what are the controls we are going to implement? What do we need? Okay, if you click on this one, okay, there is create new trip, and what user needs to fill up on this one. So let's take our same example. User has to fill up the from country to country, from state to state, and etc. So in this one, we will be using different. For country, we will be using drop down. To country, we will be using again drop down. There are different controls. We use the different controls. And from state to state, again, we will use the drop downs or some inputs if we want. Okay, and dates, travel dates, from and to dates, we will capture, and we see those controls, how they work. Okay, that's fine. So for this one, it is looking like a kind of a form, right? So for the form, with the same keyword, you just go ahead into the samples, type or look for a form. So there'll be, it will show us like smart form or a simple form. There will be simple form as well. So it's up to us, whatever the form we use. So if you see simple form, smart form includes the smart controls, and simple form doesn't include any of the smart controls. But full screen, one group, and there are different kinds of examples for us, but anything is fine for us. So how it will look like? It will look like this. Okay, and if you click on edit, it turns into editable format like this. Okay, so if you look at this code, it will be designed in this manner. Where is this one? Yeah, fragment, change fragment, display fragment, and this is what the form it has. So if you see, this is the form, and you can straight away copy this form and paste it in the project. And if you look at the smart form, is that. Let me go here. The smart form using responsive grid layout, how it will look like is the same way, but it will have a little more features. And again, the form is going to be a smart form. It starts with the namespace will be different. It goes starts with the smart form, and all the controls inside these um, um, uh, form are going to be inside the same namespace. And here are the smart controls. Whenever we say editable or edit toggleable, so these ones are going to be um, flexible in one go, whether they want to convert as editable or display only. So if you see here, edit toggleable, true. Edit toggled, whenever it is edit toggled, then it's going to do something on this function here. So handle edit toggled, if you look at this one, handle edit toggled function, handle edit toggled function, there is nothing for us in this particular one. But if we want to do something whenever it is edit toggled, then we can straight away go ahead and implement some logic there. So that is fine. First, let's go ahead and use a simple form example. Don't want to start with the complex one. I'm guessing we already started with the complex one, or getting complex, as we are covering multiple things. Let me go ahead and pick this simple one. And now let me go ahead and pick this form. So, okay, up to here, I'm picking this form. I'm going to our project, and let me paste this one. Okay, that's perfect. And now I'm having some errors, unexpected namespace F. What is, yeah, it's a form, so there is no namespace available. Let us go ahead and look for the namespace. What is this? Yes, this is the form, and we might need layout as well. L, I'm copying both of them. Let me go here and use both the namespaces. Perfect. So the layout and form, everything has come here. Okay. So now let me arrange a little bit. That's okay. So let me refresh this one. And also let us go here. So if you see, a form nicely has been implemented for us. So all these settings, we definitely need not to worry about it, because the layout point of view, how the layout will be decided or designed based on the device. The framework will take care of that one. But what we need to understand is the each and every display of the device screen is splitted into 12 equal columns. Okay, so in this 12 equal columns, it will decide whether it is a small screen device or medium screen device. And if you see here, label span XL. XL means extra large screen device. Label span for L, large screen device. And in this one, if you let me take this one out. Oh, sorry. I need to run this with frame. Let us run configurations. Go to index with frame, save and run. So now we will have an option to run this on different size devices from here itself. So right now we are on medium screen. If I go into the small screen, let me run this one. If you see, this splitting of the controls are being defined in these settings. So if it is a large screen device, how it needs to be displayed. If it is a small screen device, how it needs to be displayed, and etc. And in the small screen, if you see medium and small screen devices, it means to take 12 column space. That means for the label, it is label span, right? Label span. In the labels, if you see, this is small screen device at the moment. As I said, each screen is divided into 12 columns. So right now, even in this screen framework, considering the 12 columns, and this is one row, and input is one row, street number is one row, and this input is one row. Like this, it has been divided. If you see, each of these rows are not interrupted between, and they are occupied, or they are the space, the whole space in that row has been allocated to that particular one. That is what this meaning. So in the small screen, allocate whole 12 column space to this label or input, whatever it is. Okay, and here adjust the label span has been set to false. So empty span XL, this is again, it's a completely same. Whenever it has the empty span XL, if it is on the XL extra large screens, 4 columns empty, and etc. So once we understand this, how this arrangement is doing, whenever we copy something from the demo kit, if some adjustment is not working on our screens, then we need to have some understanding how these numbers are working out and what this means, and etc. So that's the reason I just mentioned. This is how we should be looking in terms of the settings for this one. Okay, so if you see here, label, then input, label, and then input. So there is no linkage between these two, whether it has to display on the same line, label, after label the input has to be displayed or something like that. There is no setting like that. All those settings are coming from this form properties based on this small screen, large screen, or Excel screen column settings. So that has been coming or configured in this one itself. And in this particular house number, if you see, what is this one? So here we have 2 inputs, and here wherever there is 2 inputs, street number and street and house number. So in the house number, we see some additional setting has been defined using the layout. So this is grid data span equal to XL. If it is XL, then one line. What is this? L2, M2, and again this is some styling styling declaration or definition. Styling style class definition. It's a dynamic style class definition actually. So whenever it is dealing with Excel devices, large devices, medium devices, and small devices. So if I change this to 3, for example, okay, and see how it is going to reflect on our screen. So for this house number, right now it is this size. Let me refresh this one, and let me go ahead, and let me go into the small screen. Let me navigate. If you see, it became small. And if I give this to 12 again, even the house number also going to occupy the whole space next to this one. Okay, let me change the device first. Okay, if you see, the street number also occupied the whole space here. So that how this the layouting is going to work on this particular one. Okay, if we have that understanding, that's fine. We don't need to worry much about it. Okay, fine. So now we have our layout created, but this is copied from the demo kit. We don't want to have those labels available on our application or project. So let me go ahead and look at our table here, and accordingly implement the labeling for our form, whatever we need to create. So trip ID, anyway, we are going to generate this trip ID, and from country, and this is the one which we need to have. So let me go ahead and name this as from country. So if you want to make it a translatable one, as we know, you just go ahead and create a name in your i18n file, and then use that i18n variable name here, the resource model name. And this one is ID. We necessarily need not to mention, as it is going to dynamically generate an ID, or we can have it for our demonstration. ID from country. I'm giving an ID, and here if you see, we definitely don't know what are all the properties available for this one. For example, label. What else we can specify for a label? That's fine. We can look that one. I will leave it with you. But for input, it is important. So again, we will be going to the API reference here, or if you want to look at the input samples, you can go ahead and pick up the input, not the web component. I want it to be from input field, user input. Okay, so input. In the input, if you see, we have 17 samples available here. So input assisted, if we start with this one, and I think we have already seen this input. So if you see, this is what the assisted means. So as soon as you type something on the input field, it will be giving some assisted values dynamically matching to that criteria here. Okay, so those things we will come here and check in the samples, or directly we can go into the API reference and we can look for the properties. If you go into the code for this one, and this is what the view for the assisted, what it is you using, it is using one of the aggregation here, suggestion items. And in the suggestion items, again, there is um, there is a separate property available for this one, and there is some binding as well, but that's fine. So if you go into your API reference here, m dot input, so select the input, m dot input, and in the input you will see all the properties, what are all we can use here. So autocomplete is true, and there is a description as well. If you prefer, you can read that one. Description, that's fine. What is, yeah, it's a 46. So enable suggestions. So whenever we use the suggestions, um, then there will be dependent properties as well, like we have seen in the previous sample. So if you bind suggestion items, then we need to use the suggestions aggregation to specify how the items should look like, and etc. And field width is 50%, and if you want to restrict this to certain length, we can specify that particular length here. So maximum length equals to the from country, it's going to be 2. Let me say the maximum length is going to be 2, whether it is GB or IN or whatever. So I just need it to be restricted to 2 character. Okay, and the selected key, this is only for the suggestion list. Show clear icon. So if you want to let me use this one, show clear icon equals to true. It's just whenever, okay, maybe this is available since 1.94 and we can't use that one, so that's fine. Okay, so what else I can use? Selected key and value is the main property for us. So let us look for the type, and if you see here, input type, and this input field can be used for multiple types as well. So by default, it's going to be text type. If you want this to be used for number type, email type, or phone type, if you see here, so these are all the types that we can make use. But there is a type link available here. If you click on this one, it's going to tell you what are all the types can be used. So if something is deprecated, then you are not supposed to use that one. If you see, if you are letting or using this input field for your email address, and there will be some validations that framework will be doing, like @exist or something like that. If you use this email, then it automatically notifies it. And number, if you use this number, it won't allow any other characters. It allows only numbers, so that we do not need to validate explicitly whether user has entered the right format of data or things like that. And again, same thing for telephone. The formats have been already in the framework, and this is the text, which is the default option. And password, if you are going to have a password field, and that is self-explanatory. And if it is an URL, again, it's going to, you can specify, yes, this is a URL. Okay, so right now we leave that to text, because our country key is going to be the text. Sorry, so we thought of using this for as a drop down value, right? That's fine. So show suggestions, Let me use that suggestions. So for these suggestions, whatever we are not sure, then we can straight away go ahead and pick up the code from our samples. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Let me pick up this from assisted, and also here the assistance is going to be only one field, right? But in our case, what I'm going to do, I want to display both country key and country name. So for that, if you see here, so there are, this is the key and this is the description it is displaying. So I want to have assisted input same like this. So let me go ahead and pick up what is having here. So this is the input. Let me copy this input and come here. So let me paste it here, and this input is no more valid for me. I'll just ignore that one. Let me format it. So here from country, I'll just replace the ID, and this placeholder is going to be the default text that is going to display on the input. So if you see here, by default there is some description is being displayed. So that is what is called the placeholder, enter product. And if we want to place something here, so these are all the properties that are available in the API reference. We can straight away go ahead and have a look there. So enter from country key. I would say enter the from country key. So show suggestions, yes. Suggestion items. So this is where we need to look at it. So the suggestion countries, as we have entity set available already on our project. So I think a country VH, I guess. Why is it not launching? I think, yeah, that's fine. We already have this in our annotations, I think, because we have configured that as a value help. Come on, it's taking time. That's the reason it is also, because these annotations also needs the service OData service communication. And a suggestion. Okay, so here we go. We have in the trip planner that entity sets. In the entity sets, we have this country VH. So this is the entity set. I'm going to do this or replace this with the country VH. So this is the binding that we are doing to the UI element. So this is called the value binding. Okay, so there are types of bindings: expression binding, element binding, and this is straight OData model binding. So we are directly binding from the OData model itself. That means the model is connected to the OData service. We have created this as a default model. If you see in the manifest, we have created the default model as our OData service. So if you see, whenever we put some descriptions from I18N model, then there is a name for I18N model. That's the reason we are proceeding with I18N. If there is a model name that we have specified in our model creation, then we would be using that model there, model name. But in this case, if you see, I18N is the model name, and within the model name we have these app title, title, etc. And that's the reason we are using I18N, then greater than, then the attribute name. But as we have created our OData model as a default model, default models doesn't need to specify or have any um, uh, model name before its properties. Okay, so that's fine. So core, what is the text we need to display for this one? So whenever user type, okay, so what is the text we need to display? And the text we are going to see from here is what is the property available in this country value help, and text is going to be the country name. I'm going to bind this property. This is the entity set. Now we are going in the property level. So additional text, what I would say, the country, and if we want to give the multiple properties, that is also possible. You can specify like this: country and hyphen, then the name, like this. Okay, so let me go ahead and refresh the app. Let me go to create new. This is the from country. So it's not bringing up the data. Let us see what is happening. Something might be happening in the background. So let us clear this one, everything. Now let's type nothing found in the logs. So we might be missing something. Suggestion true, and placeholder, suggestion items, everything is fine, I think. Let me go here. Input, yeah, that's okay. And how this is slash suggestion items. Start set model, that's fine. I think as we are dealing this with the OData model, even this is valid, but let me try this one. Country value help. Nope. Okay, so this might not be supporting supporting the search capabilities, or OData service. OData service might not be supporting the search capabilities. That could be the reason. Let me do it one more time. Yeah, I think that could be the reason. I'll sort that out. I see some errors. What are the, okay, they are not relevant for this one anyway. Yeah, so these errors are not relevant for this one. But anyway, instead what we do, we just go ahead and replace this with another control, that is the drop down. So here we know that it is a select control. So let me go ahead and use. So you can type drop down. So if you type drop down, we see select, multi combo box, and combo box, etc. So the difference between the even combo box is for drop downs. If you look at this combo box, this is for drop down, whereas here we will be having such for possibility, but in select we will not be having the search possibility here. So whatever the value is displayed, that's it. So we can select it, but we won't be able to search for any value in the select. So again, as per the guidelines, UI5 guidelines, select is used to display a very limited list of values, whereas combo box can be used if we have more values on your drop down. So whereas searching criteria will go and filter the data and also applies the paging concept. So if you have more values to be displayed in your drop down, then go ahead and pick up the combo box. So let me go ahead with this combo box. So this is the combo box. That's fine. I'll just go ahead and use this one. So where is my entity set? This is my entity set, country value help. Okay, so here they're also using for country value help. And what is the country text is going to be country name, and search sorter path also based on the country name. Let's put it this. And the key is going to be, what is the key? It's a country. Country is going to be the key for us. Okay, so now we have the country value help. Let me see if this works. Go ahead and yes, here we go. So we have our drop down has been displayed here. So if you start typing on this one, it's not going to give you any results. That is because we have not implemented the filter or search criteria in our OData service. Okay, so but we can choose any of the country from the list. So this is where our CDS views help us, because implementing search and things like that is definitely is not is a tedious task for us if it is a code-based data service. So whereas we have the country available, and we can straight away link that CDSU into our project, and we can straight away go ahead with particular sorry, with our project implementation. Okay, so similarly, we will be creating two country, state, regions, and etc. So for those, one of those we will be using the select again. So for two country, let us go ahead and implement the select. Go to select, and in the select again, copy this one. Yeah, select. Let's go ahead and paste the select logic, and in this case again we will use the same entity set that we have used, and this is what is going to be the path items, and the sorter is going to be country name. Let me give the same text also is going to be set. And the selected key is the local path, I'll tell you that, but item key is going to be the key from country, whatever the user has chosen. That's it. So we have the two country as well now, but before that we should have the label placed, a label, and let me remove this too. Okay, that's fine anyway. So two country. Okay, let me reload it. Go to next page. Here we go. The two country also displays the entries, and if you see, it is not reaching to the end. It stopped at Hungary, but there are more countries, I guess. Okay, if there are more countries, it's not going to load all the countries. That's the reason we use the combo box if we have more values on the list drop down, if we want to display at all. So same can be repeated for state, from state and to state. And the other one we have is the date, travel start date and the end date. So if we look at this date, we have multiple date date UI controls here. And if you see the date time picker, we can see the examples here. So whatever the example is applicable for us, we can pick them. But instead, date picker, this is the date picker we have. So if we click on this one, automatically the help will come here. Okay, and as we are looking to the from and to dates, we can go for a date range selection. And in the date range selection, once user goes for the date range, so this is the ideal format for us. So if we select like this, it's automatically going to populate the from and to dates for us. So the first one is likely we are interested. Let me go here, and this is the date range selection. Let me copy this one and go into here, date range selection. Let me beautify this one a little bit, and I'm going to remove this. Okay, that's fine. If I don't have label here, it will disturb our layout as we specified on the top. Travel dates. So here, that's fine. We don't want this. Value type, if you see, date interval, options, pattern is specified in this format, YYYY. Okay, but in our case, we want this to be DDMMYYYY. So I'll remove this. Parts of this one is going to be yeah, type, model, date, path is going to be start. We will replace that one, that's fine, and end is that one. Okay. Okay, so here we don't want to handle anything at the moment, that's fine. So we have created the date range selection. So let me reload this one. Go ahead, and now if you see, okay, so it is having some syntax errors. Okay, so if you see, I can select the multiple dates here. Okay, 2 to January 31st, or 3 to 24th, January 3 to 24th. The styling, how we see in the latest UI, that's not coming here because that is the latest UI version. Okay, but we can have the dates selected in this manner here. Okay, so now we have the travel from and start dates. The interesting thing what we need to know here is we won't be able to capture any of the data in this input fields, whatever we are creating at the moment. Okay, so the reason because we don't have any binding created yet. So okay, user is filling, that's fine. As we discussed, if we want to read these values from the screen, how are we going to do that, right? So at the end, let me place a button here. Okay, submit button. For example, text equals to submit, type equals to accept, and we want the press event as well on submit. So for this on submit, we should have some JavaScript written. Where is this create trip controller? I think we haven't opened that one. Let me close all of them. Create trip and create controller. So here these are all the hook functions which will have their own lifetime. On init, it is self-explanatory here. And in the latest UI5 versions, these hook functions or commented lines are not generated by default. So just go ahead and read these descriptions on after rendering, before rendering. Whenever screen render starts before the on before rendering will start. Once the screen is rendered, then this event will trigger. Whenever the screen is about to whenever this view has started rendering, then this will be called. Whenever the view is loaded, automatically init will be called. Whenever a view is going about fading out or closed or something, the exiting this event will be triggered. Okay, they are the framework hook methods, hook functions available on this controller. Apart from that, we are happy to create our functions. Okay, so on submit, we are going to implement something here. So that's fine. So whenever we go ahead and fill up the form and pick up something and submit, click on the submit button, and it's not going to happen anything. Okay, I fill the dates, and if I want to click on submit, and it's not happening anything. But how that we are going to work out? Okay, so for that one, we are going to work on the JSON model. Okay, so we create a local JSON model which facilitates us to bind with the UI and read the values that user has provided. So in the example itself, in the samples, you might have seen that the controller, not on this one, maybe on select. In the select, you might have seen in this example, there is a JSON model creation, but there is so this is how we create the JSON, but that's fine. So in here, if you go to the API reference, and here if you type JSON model model here. Okay, so here we will have all the guide that we can use it, but in this case we are going to create a new JSON model. So this is what the new JSON model, and if we have any data, if you want to provide a already collected data, then we can bind the data along with it. Otherwise, we can straight away go ahead and create this new JSON model. Let me create this JSON model. I'm just creating this new JSON model here. As I do not have any data, I just leave them, and also I just this dot model set model, and I'll give the model name as a local model. So what it does, we are just setting this newly created JSON model to this view, and in this one we don't have any properties at the moment. So let me create some object. properties, or it can be data as well. Model data equal to, let me populate some values to this, or populate some properties. And in this one, I would say from country, null. To country is, let me populate GB, for example. And start date is null. End date is also null, and it has to end with this one. And also, let me state from is null, or that's fine. Let me leave this one. That will help us to demonstrate something else. Okay, so right now we have the data as well. Let me populate this data and create the model. So now we have JSON model created along with its data. And the same model has been set to our view as well. So you may not be understanding right now, but once we do this activity, you will get clarity why we are doing this. And the same properties, if you see here, these properties I am going to bind here in our UI place. So here we have the items, and in the combo box we have some other property. Let us go into the API reference combo box. It should be from M namespace. Let us take this combo box here, go to properties, and in the properties here, if you see selected key. So selected key, let's take this selected key, and here what it means, items. Okay, we are showing the list of items, and these are the value help. Okay, that's fine. Where to capture the user selected country, that is what this selected key defines. So equals to what I'm doing, I'm going to make a binding to our local model that we have created just now. And this is how we go and bind our properties. So from country, this is my from country. And now whatever the user selects from the drop down, that is going to store in my local model and in the from country property. So the same bindings I'm going to repeat for these other properties. This is the select, and it's going to be the to country here. So to country, that's perfect. And the date range, and in the date as well, we have here the path. What is the path of this one? And the path is going to be this one. So let me paste this one, and here begin date. And for the where is this one, format options? Okay, that's fine. And the end date is going to be this one. And And this I'm bit suspecting whether it works for the dates. Let us see that. And let me create one more currency or state value help. Yeah, we have state value help as well. So let me create another combo box for state value help, and I'll demonstrate one more step as well. So this one here, let me copy this one and selected key here. So I'm giving this state from, and this is from state value help. Okay, and name is going to be the, okay, so here we have, okay, that's fine. So country, region name is going to be this one, region name, and the key is going to be the region. Okay, state from, and same thing goes for state 2 as well. State from and state 2. Okay, so perfect. Now we have created the state 1, state from, and state 2. You observe that we don't have state from and state 2 properties available in our model here. Okay, so let us go into our application. Let us try to fill something. If you see here, United Kingdom has been automatically popped up, and there is something coming in this one. Let me put labels for them. That is where they are disturbing. So let me create a label, and what is this one is from? State from, and this one is for state 2. Okay, now they are not going to disturb us. So in this case, we have fixed something that country is United Kingdom, and travel dates, again, we have the flexibility to choose. And in this one, I'll just say something, whatever the country, doesn't matter. Okay, and a state from, if you see, the states are displaying, but there are no filters available at the moment, and you can pick up any other states, that's fine. So now we want all this information into our submit button. Then only we will be able to send this information and make OData call to get this created in our backend. But for now, we don't know how to do that. So let me get into the action that we have created. So let's go ahead, and in this place, so here we are setting the model here. Okay, the same way we will be getting the model here. So this get model, and what is the model that we want to get? This is the model you give me. Okay, local model. And for some additional reference on this JSON model here, we can again go and take help from the API reference. And if you look at the JSON model, here also there are some methods here. So in the methods, you can look at get property, set data, load data, and set property methods. So these methods are used to get or set the data into the JSON models. Okay, into and from the JSON models. So right now what we are trying to do is, so right now we are getting the model, we have the JSON model right now, and from now onwards we can apply any of these methods that we see on our JSON model. So let us go ahead and get the property. So data, I would like to see the data. So local model dot, I'll apply get property. So in this case, whatever the data available in the JSON model, I would like to see that. So if you want all the data available in the JSON model, then you specify slash, then it gives you all the data. So I'll tell you a few things. Let me save this one, and let me run it in the big screen. Run configurations without frame, save and run. Okay, so let me go here and pick up some country. Yes, and I'll change the United Kingdom as well. So something like this, and I'll choose this one, state from, and state 2. Okay, so now let me switch on my developer tools as well, get into the sources and the controller. In this case, create trip controller, and let me put a breakpoint here. Okay, so now let me click on submit. So once we click on submit, we see this the model has been loaded for us. If you see, we got the local model reference. Okay, and in the OData, it's a interesting thing. In the OData, if you see, we have all this information here. If you see, so if you feel comfortable, if you don't feel comfortable looking the data in this manner, you just copy your variable here and developer tools, go to console, clear all the things, and you put you paste, or if you start typing OData, it displays the variables that are available with those names. And once you click on this one, you can see all the information here. So in fact, the end and begin date are not coming because we are not binding them to the right properties. I knew that when we were doing. Apart from that, from country to country and etc., we are getting the country keys, exactly what our value help is working on, and also state from and state to. If you observe, state from and state to are not part of our initial model that we have created here, right? But it doesn't matter if you don't want to create any data here. If you bind your JSON model to any of the UI control with any specific property, then the framework is automatically going to create that property for you in your JSON model and assign the data that user has entered. Okay, So from this one, and we can do a lot of things in the console as well. How we can extract these properties and etc. So for example, if I have the OData, and from this one, if I want to extract from country, how I'm going to do that? So I'll just put dot, and then I see all my properties coming through here itself. So I just write like this. That's fantastic. So now I'll just copy this one, and I can straight away go into my um, service here, and I'll just use this attribute that I copied, and I prepare my payload according to the OData service that I built in the backend. So in the backend, what is the structure that we have? It's a travel header. Just look at the properties, and in the properties we have the from country. So let me prepare that payload here itself. Let me variable o payload that equals to, so if we are sure that all the properties that we have in our local model are same as our OData model, then we do not really need to prepare a specific payload structure. Otherwise, we will need to prepare the payload structure here. So in this case, from country, I'm writing this from country, and OData from country. I'm mapping the data right now. Okay. So, and to country, from city to city, from date to date, to country, and let me use the property here, and it is also to country. I think it's a to country. Yeah, to country, from date, and in this case it is going to be start date, I think. Yeah, start date, and this one is to date. This is end date, and state from, and here it's going to be from state, I think. What is the binding that we have given is state 2, state from, and state 2. Okay, so state from, and our OData OData property for state 2, this is the state 2, and state 2 here also state 2. So now we have our payload prepared based on our structure there we had. So in this case, I'm going to remove these fields for now. We do not need them. Okay, it may disturb our layout. Let me put this one, and I will remove this text for now temporarily. So now we have our payload in our hand. Now we want to trigger the backend OData call. So let me format it. That's fine. So for this one also, we are going to take reference from our API reference. So for this one, again, right now we searched for JSON model, but this is not going to be JSON model. It's going to be v2 OData model, right? you search for v2 OData model. So in this case, you will see v2 dot v2 model dot OData dot v2 dot and OData model. And if you click on this OData model, it will guide us how we will need to create an instance for OData model here. But in this case, we do not really need to create new instance, as we already have our OData service instantiated and already available in our project here. Okay, so all we need to do is, so let me v2 model, or let me say backend model equals to this dot get owner component dot get model. So this will give us the model that our project has been connected. That means why, so if you see the difference here, get model, we have given a name here, it irrespective of the JSON or v2, that doesn't matter. But if there is a name specified for a model, then we specify that model and get the instance of it. But in this case, we do not have any name given to our v2 OData model, as we set this that as a default model. Default model doesn't have any name. We just use the get model to get the instance of that particular model from the owner component. So now we have the v2 model instance, whatever has been doing in this particular step, we have the instance. Now let's look at the methods that what we can use for this one. So in the methods, we have a create method available in this one. So if you see, the create method is will trigger the post call here, trigger a post call request to OData service. That was okay, whatever it is. So it will trigger a post call if we give the entity set name. So let me click on this create method and see there. So parameters are optional, but O data is referring to the payload, and yes path is referring to our entity set. What is the entity set that we are triggering the post call? That is required here. Okay, so let me go ahead and use my create call here. So backend model, and the method calling is always going to be dot, okay, create. So if we use the create, and we need to have the path will be slash and then the entity set. What is the entity set that we are going to trigger a post call in this case? So in this case, we are going to trigger a post call for travel header. So let's pick that travel header, and then immediately comma, we are just following the syntax that has been specified in the create method here. So next we need to give the OData. So what is the OData here? O payload is our payload here. So this is the payload. And now we have optional parameters here. So in the parameters, we have some things. And these some things we definitely need to know whether it is success or whether it is a failure. So for these parameters, wherever we see these parameters, they are going to be mapping of one object. So how we do that, comma, start with object that we use for JSON. Everything will be JSON. Whenever we say object, it will be inside the curly braces. So if you look at the success and error, they are the functions, a callback functions. Okay, callback functions that will be called based on the result that we get from the OData service after post call. So they will be having certain parameters as well. So it will have OData and response parameters, and error will have the error context, error context. So we can capture that information, that object, and we can report it to the user with the same message. So let me do that. Success function OData response. So this is a function, that's fine. So, and comma, and we have error as well. Error function, this is how we define the callback functions, and error is the object name here. And we have more parameters, but we are not worried about those parameters right now. Debugger, let me put the debugger here as well. So now we have, if you see, we are not validating anything. We are just getting, reading the data, and we are sending it to the backend for creation, data creation. We are making a OData call here. So let me save this one and go back to my application. So let's bypass this one. Let me refresh. And whenever we trigger those calls, we will be sorry, we will be getting the debugger also into our backend. If we want to monitor something, we can do that, and also all the errors that are occurring also captured in the gateway error log. So let me fill up something here. Albania, United Kingdom. I'll leave that one as it is, and these dates, anyway, we have issue with this date. We are not going to have anything in this date at the moment, but state from, this is going to be anyway incorrect data. And let me clear this one. Let me see if I have something. Yeah, so there is already debug point available. Let me click submit. Perfect. And if I click on this one, and if you look at this payload, and this is what the payload we are going to have when we call our post call here. Okay, so now we are getting the instance. So backend model, if you see, this is the backend model instance we have got, and within this backend model, if we go and look in detail on this one, a service URL already have been specified on this particular one here. So that is where it's going to consider the service URL, and on top of it, it's going to take our entity set name. And if you clearly observe here, there are many things. Even it has the right security code here, XCSRF token. All these XCSRF tokens, everything will be taken care by the survey model. Whenever we create that as a model in our project, it's going to get all of them. But if you don't have this instance, if you want to instantiate your model, then you need to have the service URL. Then only you will be able to create your instance, and on top of that, you can create a trigger, post call, trigger a post call. Okay, so right now we have all that information, and now let me execute F8. So it has returned some error for me. So error. So there is some error. What is the error? Let's see. And even it logs in the console. So in the error, what is the error message that we have? It is a little bit difficult, but let me parse it, parse of error dot response text. So if we parse this one, we get into the detailed message: failed to read property from date at offset 48. Yes, of course, from date is null in our case, right? The same error message will be reported in the backend error logs as well. So if you see in the error logs, you will see the same message. So Thara1 change set processing failed. If you see, by default, it has triggered the batch call and failed to read property from date at offset 48. Whatever the message the backend is reporting, the same message will be returned back onto the UI as well. So in this case, invalid value, that's true. If you come to your data structure, and if you see from date is not meant for enable null. So if we want to ensure from date can be null, then if we enable this null property here, then it's not going to stop us. Right now, as it is not enabled for supplying null values, we are ending up with that particular error. Okay, so it is up to us how we manage it. And as we are getting some error here, if we fail to report some message, we can report some message using sap.m.message toast is message toast is one of the control that we have. Message toast dot show. In the show, we can write the message here. JSON dot parse of error dot. So the thing, whatever we have here, we can take it, response text. Okay, and once it is passed, what is the path? Error dot message dot value. So dot error dot error dot message dot value, and there is space here. Let me remove this space. And the options, we don't want to show any options, and so the request has been failed. We are notifying to the user, and if it is successful, we will see the successful scenario as well. If it is successful, it will return some response for us. So for now, let me go ahead and enable the null property, or let me straight away go get into this one and look at the property. What is that? Date range selection, right? So the date range selection, let me take the API help. That one, go into here. Let me take the API help, date range selection, go into the properties and see what are the properties available for me here. So this is the delimiter is replaced by date value property of date time field. That's fine. So here it is taking some properties from another control, it seems. So let me go here, extends date picker, and in the date picker, let me look at the properties. Maximum date, minimum date, and etc. Oh, sorry. It showed me the control name there, but I ignored it. It seems it is not in this control. So from, and this is the date time field. So date value, and where is the another one? Date value is the property. Let me come here, and this is where we should be using our binding property. Oh, sorry. Maybe this could be the issue. I don't know. So begin date. There should be value 2 as well. Date value 2. Okay. We are not on the latest UI5 version, right? I'm looking at the wrong things, I think. So from, okay, it is 122 itself, it is deprecated, and a second date value. So this is the one I'm looking for. And what is the second date value for binding? And this is the second date value. And let us bind this value and this formatter. We will come to this formatter. It is not required for us right now. And perfect. So we have fixed this one. Let us go ahead to this one, and that's fine. So let me refresh. So let me choose the country and the date, state from, and state to. Let me submit this one. We have the payload, and in the payload, if you see the to date, where is this from date? From date is null. I think start date. Is it start date or begin date? It is the begin date here. Let me change it to start date. Yes, that's correct. Let me refresh it again before it goes to backend. Okay. Let me fill all the information again. So let me submit it. So payload, if you see, we have the dates right now available. So, and now we are about to trigger the backend call. So again, we have ended up with the error. This time it might be some different error. So the travel header create entity not implemented. If you see, The travel header create entity not implemented. Yes, that's true. So we have not implemented the direct create entity. We have implemented instead the deep entity. Create deep entity we have implemented. So let us tweak a little bit. I know it's getting more, but I don't want to leave this in between. In the travel header, let us look at the navigation properties. In the navigation properties, I just go ahead and add in our payload. In the payload, I'll add our navigation property and I will leave this empty. That's fine. It is now going to trigger the create deep entity for us. So that's fantastic. Let me see that. Okay. Whatever it is, that's fine. Don't mind. And now in the payload, we can see the navigation property, two details. Two details is empty at the moment, but that doesn't matter. It's going to trigger the create deep entity call for us. Perfect. So we were able to make it success. So now it is in success. So the OData and the response, if you see here, the response, in the response, it will have, come on, where is the console? Let me go to console. So this is the response we have got. The response is 201. And the response data will have the information that backend has sent back to us. So trip ID, a new trip ID has been created for us. So we can take this information and we can report it back to the user. Okay, and also we have another OData, and this also will have this will not have the response code, but it will have only the data. But response, if you see, it will contain the status code. If you are handling something based on the status code, we can take this response. Otherwise, if you think if it is success, then straight away you can go ahead and take this trip ID and you can report to the user. So in this case, we are saying SAPUI.m.message toast. So show the message from OData. And in this case, I'm just preparing a small message. Variable message equals to trip with number, or trip number plus OData dot trip ID plus is submitted. That's it. So I am going to give this message to the user. Okay, so now we are done with this. So let me close this one. And if I keep submitting this one, it will be submitting those many times. But it is our responsibility to validate if there are any certain validations. Okay. So perfect. Okay, submit. trip number 76 is submitted. If you see, so as soon as we submit this one, trip number has been submitted. If you keep your cursor, this toast message toast will display. Stay how long you stay there, but if you remove your cursor, it will disappear. Okay, so perfect. So in one session, we were able to go end to end, creating the controls, getting the data, creating JSON model, and getting the B2 OData model reference, and triggering a post call to the backend, and reading the error response, reading the success response, everything. That's really great. So thank you. So I would like to stop here.